G'day and welcome to this episode of Ranger Touring. We are packing for Cape York. We're heading up there in September for about a month. We've got a drive all the way from Darwin, which we're doing in about 4 days, and then about 3 weeks in the Cape. From there, we're going to head back and check out some sites in the Northern Territory as well. So it's a pretty long trip. It's one of our longest we've probably done, or it is the longest trip we've done in just the car. We're not taking the trail this time. So for packing, we've really had to think about what we're taking and really make sure that we're prepped for the trip. I'm going to show you everything that we're packing and where I'm putting it so that it's either easy to access, but then also the weights are all configured correctly. In addition to that too, I'm going to be talking through broadly how we're making the trip work from a packing perspective. So for instance, you won't see any food packed now. You'll see that in Cairns when we get all our dry food and all our wet food then. You'll also see a new set of tyres on the car at that point in time because it's 2,600 kilometres to get to Cairns, so we may as well do it on the old tyres, which are somewhat ready for replacement. So we've had some maintenance changes on the lead up to the trip to get it ready. I was going to get new front springs put in. The plate that houses the spring was actually broken, and therefore I had to get new front shocks and springs. So I've got the new XGS springs and shocks in the front, which has just lifted the front back up again. Going around to the rear, it's not in there yet, but I'm actually changing out my rear leaf packs to a Dobinson's kit, which has a 500 kilo constant as opposed to the 300 kilo constant that I've got currently. It sits all right now, like it actually looks quite high, but once we start adding the weight and the water and everything on that we take camping, it'll really start to sag down and drop the back end down. On top of that too, I've put it in for a full service. I've had your standard 112,000 kilometre service done on it, but in addition to that too, I've also had the transmission fully serviced, and then in the last one I also had a pretty expensive incident where I had to pretty much replace the whole rear drum assembly. So that's all fixed. Prefer to do it beforehand, so it's all good to go. I can definitely recommend if you're doing a long trip like this, which is 10,000 kilometres for us, getting a really good service and pretty much just getting them to turn over anything that was sort of on its way out, because when you start adding dust, dirt and water crossings to anything, it's just going to destroy everything. So you may as well do some preventative maintenance to start. So pretty much everything that we're taking is here in front of you. I've kind of laid it out so that when I pack it, you know, this is going in the right hand side of the car, that stuff there is going in the tub, and then that sort of stuff is going on the left hand side. I've got to throw a few things in first and I'll talk you through exactly what we're doing. In addition to that, I have everything that I'm taking on a pretty large spreadsheet, and it's good to go through a run through of everything, make sure you've got everything. Even when we're going through stuff just before, we realise some of our cans of like spray and detergent and all that are pretty low, so we'll have to replace those before we go. So I guess starting at the back, I may as well put in the back seat stuff that goes under the seats. We'll start with all that. So starting with the underneath of the back seat, I've got 2 spots here and here to put some stuff that I don't go to very often. So to start off with, first things that are go in there are all the spare parts. So what I've got some blade fuses, got front and rear wheel nuts and wheel studs. We learn a hard lesson that they're pretty important to pack. I've got some brake cleaner, oil filter, fuel filter, secondary fuel filter. I've got some more blade fuses and electrical stuff. Some of the bigger ones specific to the winch and the air compressor. Radiator hose, a little bit of 3mm rubber cord, which you can wrap around your airbox to seal that off. I've got a poly belt, which does include the alternator for power and that sort of stuff as well. And then I've got a random bag of bolts, continually gets added to, so there's quite a lot to go. So we'll throw all that in now. So in addition to the regular 12 volt fridge cord, I'm going to put the 240 volt in for when we get to Cairns, so we can get everything nice and cold on 240 power, and we'll just seal that up. So that's all done. Next we'll put the fridge in, and we'll put the little slide out drawer. Homemade shelf, very poor quality, but gets the job done. Slide that through. All right, so for this trip we've only got the 55 litre fridge. It doesn't have a freezing component, so Jay's doing all the meals for this trip. We've got a pretty big list of meals that we've got. The longest section without stopping off at a shop is 10 days. So we're going to be able to fit 10 days worth of food in here, plus our drinks. So pretty creative packing and cooking, but we're going to do a bit of food prep in Cairns and whack it in the fridge and try and freeze some stuff and keep it right down the bottom and run the fridge off about 1 degree. It's in there, nice and tight. So now we'll do all the stuff on the right hand side back. So starting with the shelf, put that in. So put some straps around it. It's just held in with these. That just allows a bit more organisation and just easy access to stuff. We had the smaller one for when we were travelling with Cheddar, but he's not coming on this trip, so wanted a bit more organisation. I couldn't fit a full set of drawers or anything in here because the door doesn't open to 90 degrees. So unfortunately can't do that, but it still achieves the same effect. Packing all this stuff in now, so 200 watt solar blanket. Squeezes down the front. Next I'll do the 240 power charger for the battery box. Okay, so the main reason for this one is the Ranger has a 230 volt power charger in the back, so I'm plug that in, charge the battery box when I drive, and then that gives me 240 power then when I stop. So this is a 500 watt inverter put in it, and it's also got, I think it's about 24 amp hours of lithium, which isn't a tremendous amount, but it's enough to run the Starlink for about 8 to 9 hours, which is pretty good, which is exactly what I got it. So it also then doesn't put another impost on my regular battery, and I can still run a fridge and that sort of stuff for short periods of time. So pretty happy with this product. Throw that in, plug the charging cord onto it straight away, so that whenever the car's turned on, it's charging. Push that right up the back. Next up, we've got laptop with 2 external hard drives, just for filming stuff. 2 GoPros, slide them in. But we've got the spare batteries for the DJI Osmo and all the GoPros, plus any external parts. We've got the carry case for the drone, go for a walk, put that in there, and then that one slots in the front there nicely. So that's sort of the middle drawer done. Now going to the top drawer, got the fan with the battery held on that, slots in perfectly, then the drone in just in front of it. So when I built this specific to fit these just to size. Then we've got our lights and chargers. So Milwaukee 18 volt and 12 volt charger, plus a 12 volt light and an 18 volt light. Love these things. Slide that in just in front, so all my charging happens down the bottom. And then we've got 2 lights. A quick grab. Got the Milwaukee vacuum, clean out the rooftop tent, clean out the car as we're going along. Just slots in the back. Tucks in nicely behind everything there. Can't go on a group trip without Cards Against Humanity. And then this is just an extension 12 volt cord, which is just convenient to have handy. So I'm just going to chuck that in the side. They're ready to go. And then the Cards Against Humanity can just tuck in there nicely as well. Got the Yui boom. Next up, we've got the fishing rod. So it's just got a lure set up to it, and I've just wrapped it in half and then tied that off. So just if I want to go fishing quickly, just cut those off or pull the tape off and then good to go. Slot that in up the back. It just tucks down in that gap there. So it's nice and easy to get. Put this little strap across the top here. This is the fold out table. So it just sits nicely at the top here. And then on top of that is the next gen Starlink. Couldn't recommend this more, honestly. I've had this for probably 2-3 months now. It is just excellent. So fast for your internet, faster than our stuff at home. And also it's just super convenient for camping and works really well into your plan if you need an emergency communication device of some sort. So that is the back seat done. So there's a few things that go in the front seat. Got one of the GoPros for the front, just up here. HEMA HX1. There is a newer HEMA out, but this one's still going strong, so keep rolling with that. Got a few chargers just for the front, so this one does GoPros. Then we've got one for the drone, and then we've got one for a mobile phone. And I've got a handful of spare USB-Cs, just in case, which I'll just chuck in center console here. Got a HEMA maps book, and then specifically for this one, I've got the Cape York special map. So I'll chuck that in, slide that nicely down the side. Winch controller and the extension cable. This is a Bluetooth one, so clear covers for the light box lights. And then in this little case here, we have a handful of things. So Got the tire deflators, E-Perb. Definitely recommend getting one of these. You probably won't need them very often, but probably the one time you do is when you really need it. Handheld UHF, extra batteries for the UHF, the drone controller, and then I've got a few little pamphlet booklets in there. So some stuff for the DJI drone, and then I've got a scan gauge, so the instruction manual and all the codes on that one. All right, still for this side, we've got a first aid kit, which we'll just shove under the front seat. Monopoly Deal, great game. Extra fishing lures and fishing stuff. Not much of a fisherman, but hey, it's good to have the option. Chuck that in the center console. And then a big recommendation if you go to Cape York and you collect stubby coolers, don't take ones that you like with you. Take ones you can buy from the shop. So these are our good to go ones, but we'll buy plenty more along the trip. Straight in the door. On the far side door, we just got some sunscreen as well. So normally for my tools, I would have a fair few power tools, but in this case, we're trying to cut down on a few things. Just because we're all going together. So the person that I'm traveling from Darwin with also is taking tools, so I'm going to take a few less. I've still got the basics, what is required. I've got a jumper pack. I don't personally need one, but these are good to have for other people. We've then got an angle grinder just in case. I've got some Loctite, some super glue, that sort of stuff, and a few little bits and bobs. Throw that in the back, and I can push the seat. For the door, I've got some fuel doctor, 2 bottles of that, and then some brake fluid, just in case run low. A new little addition is some paper towels at the top. There's never a good place to put them, but we're trying this one out. Sun safety, Kubra's in, on the little straps up the top. And then finally, we've got the air hose and the gauge. So that just sits in nicely down the bottom. Back left hand side done. So that's the interior of the car done completely. We'll now move to the tub. All right, so for this trip, we're taking the rooftop tent, and then on the back I've got 2 of these bags from Drifter, one with the double insert and then one with the single insert for rubbish and dirty clothes. They're pretty good though, because on the outside you can put some of your recovery stuff. So for this one, we're just gonna put the stuff that we may need to go to quickly, soft shackle or 2, and a tree trunk protector. Throw in the dampener blanket. So that's one side. Keep in mind, these are not dust proof and will be coated in dust by the end of it. On the big one, we've got garbage bags, and then in here is the nozzle for the fuel hose, just covered in a garbage bag so it doesn't get dust all over it as well. New little addition to the car, still gas struts, or gas strut, getting a second one very shortly. Open the back up. We're gonna put the most inconvenient thing in first, the high lift jack. I'm the one bringing the high lift jack for the group. No one else is bringing one. Again, I think they're a pretty inconvenient thing to bring, but for the one time that you may need it, like last time, it's gonna come in handy. So I'm gonna throw that in. So now that that's in, nice and tight, I'm just gonna put the base plate in. So there's a few things that'll just sort of slot in the sides. So this is a big kinetic rope. I'm gonna slide that in, chuck that down the back. We've got an extension, just tucks in the back there. We've got a hose for the water tank on the roof. We've got 2 little water jerrys for drinking water. They slot in nicely. More spares, so I've got electrical cables, Anderson plugs, that sort of stuff. Got more fuel doctor. Plenty of zip ties, because you can never have enough. 2 snorkel socks. This is SOS tape, so it's good for sealing up split pipes, that sort of stuff. Will get you out of trouble. WD-40, tire puncture repair kit. In there, some spare valve kits. And then finally is a spare air filter, which just doesn't fit anywhere nicely because it's so bulky. Normally I've got a regular jack in this spot, but because we're traveling in a convoy this time, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to use someone else's jack because I'm taking the high lift. For this trip, the longest leg without fuel is from Elim Beach to Akuka. So I'm going to take 3 10-litre jerrys. I'm going to fill these up in cans, chuck in that bag there, and we'll chuck the other 2 in afterwards. So I've got one of these King's blue boxes to hold drinks, and then for anything that can't fit in there, I've got another clear top bag. We'll get all those in cans, so I'm not going to bother filling those up just yet. But that then slides down the back, pretty much or close to being completely underneath. Get the other 2 fuel jerrys, slide them down that gap there. Fits in nicely. Next up is this big 98-litre tub. It's empty at the moment, but it'll have a lot of dry food. Got a small little bag inside just for your condiments and that sort of stuff. It will fill again. Okay, and then finally we've got all the stuff that goes in the trunk. This is the stuff that we go to the most often, so it's all sitting in here. Just talk you through what we've got in here. So this one sits on the bottom. We've stocked this up with everything. So we've got 3 cans of propane gas, 3 cans of butane gas to power both jet boilers, but then also the little thermocells as well. Got plenty of spare of those. We've got sand pegs and regular pegs, guide ropes, snap lock bags, Bushmans, fire starters, and some toilet paper. Slots in the back. Next up, we've got our kitchen, where we've got jet boiler, 2 bowls, 2 plates, 2 cups, propane gas. We've got 3 tea towels, some washing up liquid, a handful of sponges, and a lighter. That just sits on top. Next up, we've got our washing up container, little fold down one. Just slots in perfectly down the side. Pan and the Jetboil Genesis cooker. Pan goes down the bottom, Genesis cooker sits on top. All of our cutlery down the side. Got 2 different chairs now. Got the Pegasus chair and then the MacPack chair. So a few things that we don't have in at the moment are our bags, like our clothes bags. It's going to be a little bit cramped for space, but we are just going to put those on top of the fridge. A little bit inconvenient, but not too bad. For this trip, I've actually sealed off the tub. We tried this out when we went out to Kakadu and it held up really well. So it's just a small seal kit on the side and down the bottom, which keeps the dust out. So it should be a lot better this time. We've got 30 litres of fuel, as I said. The tank on the range is 80. And it gets us about 600 Ks on the highway and maybe 450 off-road. So I think that'll get us back up or close to 600 or 550, I guess, in low range. For the longest leg on the track, it's 414 Ks off-road, probably in low range for a good chunk of it. So I think that 3 jerrys is just enough to play it safe. All right, for water, we'll fill it up in a sec, but I've got 20 litres here, which we normally use for washing up. I've got 10 in those 2 5-litre jerrys on the back, and then I've got the 25-litre water tank underneath. And then on top of the roof, I've got 30 litres, which we use mostly for showers and that sort of stuff. I think it's 50 PSI into it. And then it'll be good to go for when we step off. So all done with packing here in Darwin. Next time I'll see you, we'll be in Cairns. We successfully made it to Cairns, 2,600 Ks, 4 days. Our other mates came up from South Australia, and then another 2 cars came up from Brisbane. Did all the shopping over the last couple of days. So spent a few days in Cairns, went to the brewery last night for dinner, which was awesome, and then just had a day sort of to get all the cars ready. So I've changed my tyres over. One of the other cars got a winch installed and some breathers put in. We had one mate fly in from Darwin who didn't do the drive just because of work. Went and stocked up, pre-cooked all the food and packed that in. That's all now sitting in the car downstairs. And then got all the beer, that sort of stuff, and packed a lot of up. This afternoon we're going to be just going over the itinerary as a bit of a group. We're going to try and squeeze in a few more tracks that we didn't originally plan on the itinerary just because they weren't open. So like the Creb track, for instance, isn't open. And then early tomorrow morning we'll be heading out towards Cape Tribulation. One of the mates still got to get a windshield fixed, so he'll be staying behind and then meeting us at Lions Den afterwards. So very keen for this trip to get going. If you've got any questions about what we did to prepare the cars for the trip, anything we've packed or any of the way we packed it, please put it in the comments below. Really appreciate the feedback. Cheers.
I'm running out of time, every day goes by so fast. And every moment counts, baby, I don't wanna miss a thing. We can sleep under the stars, we can sleep under the stars, or hang out in hotel bars, driving somewhere in your car. We can sleep under the stars, we can sleep under the stars, under the stars. And we don't need to do the things we don't wanna do.